Good evening. Welcome to Election 98, the race for the Kansas U.S. Senate race. I'm Dale Goder, the Public Affairs Editor at KPTS in Wichita, and I'll be your moderator for tonight. Tonight's program is part of PBS Debate Night nationally, and across the country, public stations like this one are airing programs illustrating the importance of this election, bringing the candidates before you, and trying to help the voters make an informed choice in the November election. This is a co-production of KTWU, the public station serving Topeka, Kansas, and KPTS, the public station serving Wichita and South Central Kansas. And it's taking place here at the Bob Dole Hall at the Kansas Region's Educational Communications Center on the campus of Kansas State University. We want to thank them for making that facility available for this program. Before we get to the candidates and introduce them and our journalists, a little background on this race. Bob Dole resigned his Senate seat 2 years ago, creating the need for an election to fill that 2-year unexpired term. Senator Sam Brownback prevailed in that election, defeating Democrat Jill Docking. Now this year, the full 6-year term is up for grabs, and there are 4 candidates who filed aspiring to that position. So let's begin by introducing the candidates. Alvin Bauman is the Reform Party candidate. He's a semi-retired farmer from Sabetha, Kansas. He served 12 years in the Kansas House of Representatives and 4 years in the state Senate. He's 85 years old, a widower, and has 8 children. The incumbent U.S. Senator Sam Brownback is the Republican candidate. Senator Brownback grew up on a family farm near Parker, Kansas. He holds a BS degree in agricultural economics from Kansas State University and a law degree from Kansas University. He served 1 term in the U.S. House of Representatives, representing the 2nd Congressional District. He is 42 years old, married, and has 3 children. State Senator Paul Feleciano is the Democratic candidate. Senator Feleciano is from Wichita. He served in the Kansas Senate since 1976 and also served in the Kansas House from 1973 to 1977. He's a telecommunications consultant. He's married, 56 years old, has 3 children. He holds an associate degree from New York City Community College. Tom Euler is the Libertarian candidate. Tom is from Wichita, Kansas. He is an industrial engineer with the Boeing Company. He's a graduate of Wichita State University in math, and he's 53 years old. Now allow me to introduce the 2 journalists who will be offering the questions tonight. Bill Felber is the executive editor of the Manhattan Mercury, and Jim McLean is the State House reporter for the Topeka Capital Journal. So to begin the night's proceedings, we will start with opening statements by the candidates. They'll each have 1 minute opening statement. We'll then go to the questions from the journalists. The candidates will each have a minute to answer the questions from the journalists, and then we'll have an opportunity for follow-up at that point. We'll begin with Mr. Bauman.
Thank you, KTWI. I'm very disturbed. Senator Brownback said 2 years ago he wanted to go to Washington to eliminate bureaucracy. I've heard nor read where any has been eliminated. So is he going to Washington to join the bureaucracy? Did he maybe join for big campaign contributions? Or did he maybe join with the promise of a good job when he gets out of the Senate? Where did he get the money to drive a big bus to campaign? I drive an old '77 Ford. In my time, I've never taken a cent from a corporation or from any outside of my area served. Now I have a plan to correct the farm crisis, and this plan will sure eliminate bureaucracy and restore the family farms, which in turn will bring back the little towns in our state and nation. Are you voters ready to help? If so, vote for me on November the 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. Bauman. And our next opening statement from Senator Brownback.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us this evening. For becoming an informed electorate is an important part of the process. It's been my honor to be able to serve the state of Kansas this past 2 years in the United States Senate. We've been able to get a lot done. We've balanced the budget for the first time in a generation. Since 1969 was the last time we did it. We actually balanced it this year, and we put $70 billion against the national debt. We're able to cut taxes for the first time in 16 years, and now people are able to keep a little bit more of their income that they've been paying into taxes. We've been able to do a number of other things, particularly things like welfare reform. We've cut the welfare rolls in Kansas 50% reduction. Those are some of the things that we've been able to get done, and it's been my honor to be able to serve in the U.S. Senate and represent Kansas. Been able to represent Kansas in the U.S. Congress as Secretary of Agriculture. I'm a fourth-generation Kansan, raised on a family farm in this state. And I've taken those values that I learned here with me back to Washington, and I seek to do it again in representing you in the U.S. Senate.
Thank you. Senator Feleciano.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I am the incumbent senator from Sedgwick County, 22 years in the Kansas State Senate. I'm married, 32 years with my wife and 3 beautiful children. I'm running because I think it's time that we send some true representation to the United States Senate. I think it's time that we address the issues that are impacting the people of this state and of this country. Issues such as Social Security, issues such as our veterans, issues such as our farmers that are in a world of hurt, issues such as our educational system. It is important as we look at the candidates that are here tonight addressing issues that impact not only the state of Kansas but the people of this country, that we consider carefully the role that the next senator will play as we enter the decade of the 21st century.
Thank you. Mr. Euler?
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm the Libertarian candidate, and many of you are not familiar with what the Libertarian Party stands for. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison are people that think like libertarians. We believe in a smaller government, and what we would like to see happen is that numerous federal agencies are eliminated. We don't want to reduce them, we don't want to reform them, we want to eliminate them. On tax refunds, we want everybody to get a tax refund, not just select groups. There are several items, in case tongue and brain become disconnected. I have a web page in which I discuss several items, from abortion to corporate hog farms to welfare. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll begin the questioning period, and we'll begin with the first question from Bill Felber.
And out of respect for alphabetical order, Mr. Baumann, I'll address this question to you first. We are in the unusual circumstance of actually having a budget surplus these days, and the question then arises out of that as to what we should do with it. And I would like you to take your time to outline for us, if you were elected to the United States Senate, what you would do with the surplus in order to apply it, which programs or what decisions you would make with regard to that use of that surplus.
The first thing, what is a surplus? Under our present money system, if we would even try to pay off a surplus, what would we pay off? How is our money created? We need to go back to the Constitution that the United States Congress would coin and regulate the money. If we pay off a surplus, where's it going? Have you ever read the 7 reasons why the budget is a fraud? The budget is a fraud under our present money system. And we cannot eliminate, truthfully, any budget surplus. So our budget surplus is only a paper item. It'll not really reduce the Senate. We need to get back under constitutional money in the United States if we are to live in a peaceful world.
Senator Brownback?
3 things I think we need to do with the surplus. And mind you, we are just now into the surplus. It's been 1969. That was the last time we actually had a surplus. And we're looking at a shaky financial situation looking into the future, with the entire global community being the way it is. But 3 things I think that we need to do. Number 1, preserve and protect Social Security. That system needs to create a real trust fund of real assets. Number 2, I think we need to cut taxes. The American people are taxed out. About 40% of the average family's income goes to pay taxes. 40%. A third thing that we need to do is pay down the debt. We've got about a $5.4 trillion debt. We can do those things. We use every dime of payroll taxes for Social Security, and what is left of any surplus that might be there can be used for both tax cuts and to pay down the debt. This year we used it to pay down the debt. That's a good thing to do. We need to keep on that sort of model, and we don't need to increase overall government spending. That would be the wrong way to go for us at this time.
Thank you. Senator Feliciano?
The idea that the Congress of the United States has balanced the budget with a surplus is absolutely absurd. In 1998, the Congress of the United States utilized approximately $101 billion of what we call the Social Security Trust funds. My pecking order of criteria would be to absolutely guarantee that the Social Security Fund itself secures Social Security for the citizens of the state and of this country, that we build a firewall and quit playing the games that are being played in Washington today of utilizing the Social Security funds to do what we call balancing the budget. I think first and foremost we should actuarially make sure that the Social Security Fund is sound as we approach the year 2032, which is the magic bullet date wherein if nothing happens, it'll be bust. The second thing that needs to be addressed is to make sure that we protect the integrity of the Medicaid system for the senior citizens. In Kansas, the number represents roughly 500,000 people that need to be looked after.
Thank you. Mr. Euler?
Well, I agree with Paul. I'm not so sure there is a surplus. As of the end of November, we will owe the Social Security funds about $700 billion in IOUs. Before I'd make any commitment to put what is so-called a surplus into a Federal Reserve account, I would like to see what the Constitution calls for, where Congress is required to report a statement of receipts and expenses. I've never seen that. The Constitution says we're supposed to do it from time to time, and I'm not sure what time to time means because I don't think it's ever happened.
Okay, thank you. Rebuttal opportunity? Bill or Jim?
Go ahead.
Well, I just think picking up on that issue, everybody, you talked about the budget surplus, and everybody mentions in the context of that surplus doing what we can at the present time to preserve Social Security for the long term. That issue obviously is given to demagoguery to some degree. President Clinton says he's going to veto a House-passed tax cut if it makes his desk because he claims that it is spending too much of the surplus on something other than preserving Social Security. With some degree of specificity, what do each of you propose to do to ensure that Social Security is there for the next generation? There's been talk about means testing benefits, raising the retirement age again, privatizing the Social Security system. What do each of you favor in terms of preserving the system?
Let's go in reverse order and begin with Mr. Euler.
Okay, I favor privatizing the Social Security system by setting up Social Security savings accounts, much similar to what is already set up in Chile. These would not be set up to where each individual could manage totally 100% of their money. I think it should be like 50% only that the individual could manage, because there's a lot of us that don't manage money that well, and if we're given the opportunity to go in there and completely manage 100% of our Social Security fund, we could be broke by the time we retired. But I do favor the privatization of it.
Senator Feliciano?
In no way, shape, or form do I favor the privatization of Social Security. In the state of Kansas, we have a population of 2.5 million people. Roughly 500,000 are 65 and older. The period of aging is growing in greater numbers, not only in the state of Kansas, but across this country. I truly believe that we must shore up and actuarially make sound the integrity of Social Security. To not do that by the year 2032 means that it'll go bust, the benefits will have to be cut, the taxes will have to be increased, and the next generation of Kansans, my kids, my grandkids, will pick up the tab for that. To me, that's totally unacceptable in any way, shape, or form. I think it's imperative. I think it's important that we quit playing the games with the monies that rightfully should be going into the Social Security fund itself and leaving it completely out of the budget process so that we don't play the balanced budget games that are being played in Washington as we speak today.
Senator Brownback?
I've held over 10 hearings across the state of Kansas about what we need to do in the future of Social Security. This is a program that we have to preserve and protect. It has served us well as a country, and it needs to serve us into the future. The problem with Social Security is simply that it'll work now, it'll work for people that are currently on Social Security, those soon to be on it, but when the baby boomer generation fully retires, the system is not actuarially sound, and that time is hit about 2012, 2015. We need to look in a bipartisan way a bipartisan fashion at what sort of solutions we can move forward with. I support taking every dime that comes in of Social Security, payroll taxes, and applying that to Social Security. To date, much of that has been siphoned off and used in other programs. There's not been a single thin dime saved for Social Security, and we need to save that money for Social Security. And then look for what we can do of other changes that preserves and protects this system, not only for the people currently on it, or for the people soon to be on it, but for generations to come. And we can do those things working together, bipartisan fashion.
Mr. Baumann?
Social Security is a great program, and we need to protect it. But the trouble is inflation. They give a little increase. One lady in Sabetha told me a year ago in March, she says, I can hardly make ends meet. Says my gas bill was $187 this last month. And I says, Mary, can't you get a smaller place to live at? She says, my husband and I bought this house for a home and I want to keep it. But she says, the little Social Security I can get, 20 different groups wants it all. I think that spells out what's the matter with inflation. If we would stop inflation, we could balance a lot of budgets. But we're under our system, but inflation is eating up. Who can keep up with it? On the farm, just think of how the expenses went up. The farmers can't make it. It comes right back to the same idea on Social Security with those that's on a very fixed income, they can't make a living. We got to stop this robbing the Social Security and put it back and put it under control so that the people that paid into it and get their benefits.
Thank you. Social Security is an important issue, so we'll entertain one more follow-up quickly.
I appreciate that. With all due respect, Mr. Euler is the only one that answered the question with the degree of specificity that he said that he wanted to privatize the system. There are other options. Senator Brownback correctly pointed out that we have a demographic problem that we're confronting. What can we do without raising Social Security payroll taxes so high that people can't afford to pay them? What can we do to solve the demographic problem that's coming up?
Okay, specific answers to what we can do to answer Jim's question. Mr. Baumann, what specifically would you do?
Well, the first thing is, like I've always said, we've got to stop this inflation so people can live. But then we got to quit robbing the Social Security fund. We've got to keep that money there, and the people who paid into it should get it. The Congress has been wrong that they've been taking this money and spending it for other programs. So we got to level this thing out, and the Social Security fund should stand on its own, and it would stand on its own. But here, when we leave the immigration come in and get on Social Security and rob those who paid in, it's not right. And I would like to stop any fraud in it. I think we'd stop the fraud and put it back where the people who earned it to get it. We could level this thing off and this thing could operate greatly. Okay. That is my view on it.
Senator Brownback?
It's one of the toughest problems we're facing as a nation, undoubtedly. When you look at a system that's been so successful, so good, and yet you're looking at this demographic cohort that's coming through right now called the baby boomers, that when they retire, there's going to be so many people in the wagon versus people pulling the wagon, and that's the problem that's created. Specifically, what I think we can do over the next 5 years, and maybe this chart shows it the best, we have saved this much money for Social Security, the actual trust fund, over the past 20 years. You can't see anything there? That's because there's nothing there. It is a non-negotiable Treasury certificates, in spite of the fact that it's been running a surplus. The fund has been running a surplus the past 20 years. I'm proposing over the next 5 years that let's set that surplus aside. Every dime that comes into Social Security and payroll taxes, let's put it aside in a specific trust fund, a trust fund that's set aside, and over that 5-year time period, this 5-year time period, we would amass $437 billion. Now that sounds like a lot of money, and it is. It's still not enough. But that's something that we can specifically do here in the near term as we're working on a bipartisan solution to this problem, because this will have to be done in a bipartisan fashion, with both parties working together to try to come at a solution for when the baby boomers are fully retired.
Senator Feliciano.
It is disingenuous on the part of Sam to articulate that he wants to take all the money and put it into a trust fund when it's there already, number one. Number two, when he was advocating and articulating that he wanted to privatize a part of Social Security, as evident by the hearings that took place in the Kansas State Senate and House this last session. I submit to you that in the next 10 years, there's approximately $1.6 trillion that will be coming into the fund. I believe strongly that you need to build a firewall around those dollars and set them aside to actuarially make sure that indeed the Social Security Trust Fund is protected, that we don't have to worry about it going bust, that the dollars will be available there for the elderly that we have, particularly in the state of Kansas, numbering about 500,000 people. There is presently a system in place that my understanding is that in order to achieve 100% of your Social Security benefits from 60 to 65 to 65 to 67, it's been raised to the year 2007 to the year 2017, I believe.
Okay, Mr. Euler.
Okay. In spite of what most of us have been saying here, and some of it's kind of scaring older people thinking they're going to not get their Social Security, regardless of what happens, the older people are going to get their Social Security. The government may have to borrow it from someplace else other than Social Security, but they're going to get it. Now, there are several programs in Social Security, like supplemental security income and places where children are receiving it's basically an inheritance from Social Security, and it was never intended to do that. And we need to shut those kind of programs off.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to another.
Do you have rebuttals from us?
Well, we've spent about 20 minutes on Social Security. I think in the interest of getting to some more issues, let's move on. Jim McLean, another issue area.
Real quickly, Senator Brownback, since you're the former Kansas Secretary of Agriculture, as you know, I think as Senator Feliciano put it, farmers are in a world of hurt right now. Much of it outside of their control. There's a global economic situation, and they're being victimized. Given the fact that they're having to trade in this global market and they're being victimized by it currently, is there any thought on your part that maybe the concept behind freedom to farm was a mistake, or do you think it's just a matter of waiting out the troubles?
It's a good question to ask, and it's a good time to ask that question because farmers are in a great deal of trouble. We've got commodity prices that are 50% below what they were just 2 years ago. But I think the key thing to look at here is to say that we're open to changes. I'm open to changes in freedom to farm. But for freedom to farm to work, we have to have aggressive marketing, and we have not had that taking place. We have the Export Enhancement Program that's funded and passed by the Congress, and the administration has not used it. I think we need to be more aggressive on our humanitarian aid and that moving forward. We're going to have to move this grain much more aggressively, and I think we're also going to have to be willing to say there are things that we need to change and adjust to the Act. I went through the farm crisis in the 80s as well. At that time, as Secretary of Agriculture and as before, teaching agricultural law here at K-State and practicing law. We had the old farm program then. There was a command and control system, and we went through a farm depression at that time. I don't think really the answer is saying that freedom to farm has failed. I don't think we've adequately marketed. We really need to aggressively pass the House plan, the over $4 billion plan of assistance to American farmers, and we need to get that assistance out there now.
Senator Feliciano.
Jim, it's an excellent question, and that's why I raised the point. Our farmers are indeed in a world of hurt. Was the legislation that was enacted a mistake? I don't think so. I think Pat Roberts and others that helped enact that piece of law truly had their heart and their mind in the right place as far as farmers are concerned. The problem is that no one anticipated the catastrophe that has occurred in our global economy. Japan, Asia, Russia, and other countries of the world that are basically devastating the opportunity for the farmers who are the best manufacturers of the crops of the world right here in Kansas, have no markets by which to move those goods and services. They have diversified to the fullest extent, have no way of doing it. I find it ironic that a prior Secretary of Ag has not been visionary enough to be innovative and creative and challenging to create those markets. It's interesting that in an election year, they lifted the sanctions on Pakistan and India, but they didn't lift it on the other 70-some-odd countries that represent probably 62% of the world population. If you do that for all of them, the cost and effect of it will be that indeed there will be markets for our farmers to move their goods and services.
Mr. Euler?
Well, we seem to have a mutual admiration society here for Senator Pat Roberts' freedom to farm. I also support that measure, and I basically have nothing to add to what Senator Brownback said.
Thank you. Mr. Bauman?
The trouble is who we got making our laws and who's running the Department of Agriculture. The farmers, the producers should be doing that. Here we got a president that appoints a Secretary of Agriculture. He's obligated to the president. Who runs the president when he's a one-worlder and a free trader? Here we're producing with the farmers at a loss. Now they're trying to get a market to export it overseas. That's asinine. Let's get this thing back under the control of the farmers. My farm plan is that the national farm organizations, the national commodity organizations could elect each member that serve on an advisory board, and now that advisory board elect 14 members to run the Department of Agriculture. If we could do that, we could get it back under the control of the producers. And with this, the law would have to be that they would have to have a certificate of marketing, a marketing certificate to sell their grain. That way we could control the grain. I'm sorry I'm out of time. I would like to have more time to explain my views. We got to get this agriculture back under the producers or we will not survive.
Thank you. I think we're going to just move to another issue area at this point with Bill Felber.
Senator Brownback, I would like to ask you if President Clinton were to seek approval for the use of the United States military as part of a NATO force to prevent further problems in Kosovo, would you support or oppose such a request?
I visited just last week with Senator Dole, who's been over in Kosovo 3 weeks ago. I spoke with Secretary Albright, Secretary Cohen about this issue. It's a critical issue. You have a number of people being killed in that region, in an ethnic cleansing that's taking place. We've seen that taking place in that region of the world. There are several things we need to do, I think, right now that I would support. One's an expansion of humanitarian aid. We need to get more humanitarian aid into the region, and aggressively so, particularly before winter sets in. I want to have a lot more discussions, though, with the President and his administration before we commit troops into the region or before we take military strikes. We've had our first interaction, really, between the administration and the Senate just this past week, and they come forward saying, well, we need to rush in and we need to do these things, and now you've got the Brits already talking about using ground troops. The administration 3 years ago said we'd go into Bosnia, we'd be there for 1 year. We're in our third year in Bosnia, and I think before we commit into a long-term engagement in this region, I think we need to have a long discussion between the administration, the Congress, and the American people before we make that type of commitment. Bosnia was only supposed to be a year. We've been there 3. Would Kosovo be the same? We've got to take into consideration the suffering of the people. Humanitarian aid would clearly be needed, but I think we need to have a much longer discussion before we commit troops.
Senator Feliciano.
Excellent question. Unlike my colleague who has a vast amount of information at his disposal, what I've managed to read and understand, the human tragedy is that the President of the United States and his policymakers have indeed waited too long. The ethnic cleansing has already taken place to a great degree. Too many people have been slaughtered and killed. And the only reason why it has come to a standstill, in my estimation, is because winter is setting in. That, therein, is the human tragedy that has occurred. I think it is imperative, wherever possible, that the United States indeed rise to the occasion in helping other countries help themselves. And so, given the opportunity to have all the facts presented to me, I would think that my inclination as United States Senator, come November the 3rd, if that happens, in the session of 1999, that I would be willing to support the President of the United States in the decisions as it relates to Kosovo.
Mr. Euler?
I don't have all the facts either, but based on what I've read in the newspaper and seen on television and heard on the radios, we should do something about it. Now, whether or not I would support a large contingent of military forces under UN command going in there, I would have to think about it. If the President of the United States decides that troops are required, and he sends them in there. And if I'm elected, I will give them my full support.
Thank you. Mr. Baumann?
I'm sorry, I have always a different view on these things, but I do have a different view. Ever since the United Nations has been formed, we've been in some kind of a war of hospitalities. We got soldiers all over the world. And why? How are we running this thing? Just think of where our aid money's going. It goes into the dictators of these other nations. They fill their pockets. If there's any left, the poor might get a few. There's where we are wrong in this United States with aid. The government and the churches are to be working together. The churches are to distribute the food so the poor get it instead of the rich. Just look at Marcos at the Philippines. When the United States took him down, he owned property all over the world. That's what's wrong with giving this money to other countries. It should be given to the church to distribute.
Thank you. Let's move to another issue area. Jim McLean?
Yes, Senator Feliciano, I'll address this question to you. Let's get back into the realm of domestic policy and politics. Okay. Some people are concerned about the impact of what are known as independent expenditures on political campaigns. These are advertisements, typically television advertisements, that are funded by third-party groups that don't report their expenditures and their contributors as do candidates. Other people are not concerned. They say it's a free speech issue and don't want to regulate it. Legislation has been proposed that would require those groups to report who they are and who their contributors are. Would you favor that legislation should you be elected?
I think the citizens of this country, the citizens of this state, have a right to know who is impacting the elections that will be determining future public policies in this country. I think it's disgraceful. I think it's shameful that the incumbent United States Senator allowed approximately $400,000 to $450,000 flow into his campaign the last election without no one knowing until after the election occurred. He knew about it, but the electorate didn't, and that's unfortunate. Given the opportunity to serve in the United States Senate, I would be more than glad to sponsor legislation or to support the bill that was presently before the United States Senate. I find it interesting also that the present incumbent senator, when he was in the House of Representatives, advocated that he would support strong campaign reform. And when he got to the United States Senate, all of a sudden he changed. I think that the citizens of the state need to look at the web page, www.com or www.votesmart, to look at where it is that he's getting his money. I think they would be outraged by it.
Mr. Euler?
The current legislation, the McCain-Feingold, I would not vote for it. I would vote no. I believe it limits your free speech. I am for full disclosure of campaign contributions, whether they be from individuals or from outside sources. I believe the candidate should know who is supporting him, and he should be able to publicly disclose it.
Thank you. Mr. Baumann?
I don't know hardly how to go at this. Again, I'm different than these other boys. We need to get up in that,
Thank you.
Somebody up in that Senate to try to talk for the United States first. A president ought to be elected to represent the United States, and he should not have the power to give executive orders. It's up to the Congress. The Congress should be making the rules and the regulations and passing the laws. The president only should have the right to either veto or accept. We just getting this thing all turned around. If I'd get up in Senate, I would like to educate them on my views, because we got to get back. If we'd go back to look at the World War II, it was a time when they had emergency price controls. Prices of everything was level. We didn't have inflation. We had a good country. We was low on crime, low on welfare, and the people were happy. Let's get back to this United States the way it used to be and run it so all people are treated equal.
Thank you. Senator Brownback?
I would support a ban on all soft money of all types, both union and business soft money coming in, because that's been a problem area that we've had, and we've had a great deal of difficulty with that. We saw a lot of that in Kansas on both sides this last election cycle, and probably going to see some this election cycle as well. On independent expenditures, and the way Mr. McLean asked the question about would you support a disclosure of the information, there's already been Supreme Court rulings that that cannot take place, as far as they have said in the Supreme Court that that presents a chilling effect on free speech. One has to remember, and particularly I think people hear of this panel, about the power of free speech and how guarded that is by the Constitution and by the courts, as well it should be. Any changes we make have to be constitutional. The law we live under now was a result of campaign finance reform in 1974, that the court declared a portion of it unconstitutional, the rest of it constitutional, and you end up with a patchwork system. I think we've got to do something that's going to stand constitutional scrutiny.
Follow-up?
Yeah, the senator is correct. There have been cases where this has been adjudicated and the Supreme Court has ruled. However, the Governor Graves put forward a bill in the state legislature last year to regulate independent expenditures that his council was quite confident would have passed constitutional muster, and it did require disclosure. It didn't try to regulate it in another way, but it did require disclosure. Are you confident that any attempt to require disclosure would be unconstitutional?
I'm confident that some of the things that have been considered by Congress recently would not pass that sort of muster, and it's a critical test that one needs to put forward, because otherwise you create a patchwork, which the 1974 reforms have done. There was a 1974 set of reforms that PACs came in, political action committees, that was a reform effort, which a lot of people would look at today and say that was a bad reform. And then when you declared a portion of it unconstitutional, a portion of it constitutional, you're left with the system we have today. Truly the way that this is going to be solved is going to be by some sort of bipartisan commission. That's the only way you're really going to get at it at the end of the day. I've got a bill in the Senate to create such a bipartisan commission, because otherwise you're going to have different people putting forward different sets of ideas and different legal opinions as to whether they'll stand constitutionally or not, such as what you put forward of the governor's, which I'm not fully familiar with his bill or its constitutional review.
Senator Feliciano?
I'm glad you raised that, Jim, because the governor of the state of Kansas did indeed spend, at least his staff did, legal staff spent a considerable amount of time looking at the issue. I think the governor was right on target. He was right on track. The legal scholars that provided the opinion stipulated that indeed it would not be rendered unconstitutional, and as such we should have gone ahead and proceeded with the legislation. Again, I think the issue is not one of stifling people from spending money. I think the issue is one of disclosure. I think that the citizens of the state, the citizens of this country, have a right to know indeed who is trying to change the spend relative to an election on a statewide basis, especially as important as this election is. We're getting ready to make some major decisions in this country as we enter the beginning of the 21st century. And as such, we need to know that the person that you're sending there to Washington is indeed his own person and is not beholden or being responsible to a special interest group because of the vast amount of monies that have been laundered into his or her campaign.
Mr. Euler?
Well, I don't believe there ever will be a bipartisan effort to do campaign finance reform that everybody will agree to. It's up to each one of us here. It's full disclosure. We should have to put out in the newspaper or the radio or the television, wherever the public can view it, this is what we spent and this is who we got it from. Congressional bills, you can pass them maybe, but somebody will figure out a way to get around it. I mean, they've got around the 27th Amendment, so.
Thank you. Mr. Baumann?
Like I said in my opening statement, I've never taken a cent outside of my district where I represented. We need to stop this soft money, or whatever they call it, that's coming in to buy in their candidates. If they buy their candidates, that candidate's going to be obligated to them. We got to get this thing down. We got to get laws passed to control this thing. And I say that every candidate should not take any money outside of his own district. And if we could do that, I think we could stop a lot. And that way we wouldn't have the big corporations and things running the country because they had all the campaign money. And along with that, just think of all the campaign money that's coming back because the corporations get all the tax breaks. That's again is illegal. If the corporations is entitled to tax breaks, the young farmer should be entitled to the same tax break.
Thank you. Well, I gave my colleagues the opportunity to ask the question of the day, and of course that's the issue everybody is talking about, and that's the issue of whether the President of the United States should be considered for impeachment and the nature of those allegations. The question, considering the ambivalence in some polls of the public toward this whole investigation, are those allegations at this point serious enough to warrant consideration of the impeachment of the President of the United States? Mr. Euler.
Well, you're asking for my opinion, and should I get elected November 3rd, I will be the judge and jury if that would come up for impeachment, and I'm not really sure I should give an opinion. I should wait before all the facts are presented. The grand jury testimony is I'm not defending President Clinton, but the grand jury testimony is a one-sided affair. There is no defense attorney in there during the questioning. Therefore, I don't really know if I know the whole story. And if I was elected as U.S. Senator, I would rather wait till I saw the whole story before I made a commitment on impeachment.
Mr. Baumann.
I think the moral acts of the President is between him and his God. I will not condemn him. I will not judge him because I'm not the judge. But I disagree with the President. In some ways, he should really be impeached. He's a one-worlder. He's given our country away through the United Nations. He's going along with them. And so he's not doing his duty. But whose fault is it? Congress has given him a lot of that trouble. Congress had better start sitting down and tell that president how much power he's got and what he can do. He's doing beyond our Constitution. Let's get back under the Constitution, and we can't, I don't know if we should impeach a president or not, but he ought to follow the Constitution.
Senator Brownback?
It's a tawdry episode that we have in front of our country today. The House is considering the impeachment proceedings, and under the Constitution, the House will decide whether or not to proceed forward with impeachment. And then if so, it'll proceed to the Senate, where the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court will sit as the judge, and the 100 members of the United States Senate will sit as the jury. Each of those 100 members already have ideas in their heads, as do the panelists up here, as to what they think about the President and the President's Act. None would be selected to be on the jury if they were being selected freestanding by lawyers, but this is the constitutional system that's been set up. I think it's something that hopefully we can learn a little bit out of what's taking place here. Hopefully we can move through this process rapidly as possible. Hopefully we can move this chapter on behind us, because it is really distracting us from global problems that we have, domestic issues that we have, lots of difficulties, and I just hope that we can move forward this rapidly. And I'm not going to state an opinion about whether or not how I would vote on impeachment. One needs to see all of that evidence. I did call on the President to resign, and the reason I did, I said, please don't drag us through this. Don't take us through this. Don't leave us hostage in a world where we don't have leadership, domestic problems we can't lead on, and just the awful spectacle that we're proceeding through. Senator Kassebaum and I both stated that.
Senator Feleciano.
I've had the privilege of serving the people of the state of Kansas for the last 26 years. Of those 26 years, I've had the privilege of serving on the Judiciary Committee as a non-attorney, unlike my counterpart who happens to be an attorney. And I've learned one thing about the law. I truly believe in the due process system, that you're innocent until proven guilty. Not that the President is not guilty of what he has done. It is a despicable act of what he has committed. But I truly believe that the system has to be allowed to work. Senator Brownback has elaborated in great detail the process that's taken place. The impeachment proceedings will begin in the Judiciary Committee of the House of Representatives. If indeed they proceed with it, calling for an impeachment proceeding, it'll then be presented to the United States Senate. At that point in time, I will reserve judgment until the information has been presented to me and I've had the opportunity to look at all of it. Unlike my counterpart, who played up to the camera C-SPAN in Washington calling for the President's resignation, without reading the information, without acknowledging the evidence that was there, I would wait until all of the information is in before I would cast a decision one way or the other.
Well, I'm going to ask one quick follow-up. I understand all the concerns about not prejudging as part of the process. The question in the minds of the American people, I would guess, is does this constitute an offense that is worthy of impeachment if a president commits sexual indiscretions, is found to have done so, and then lies to cover up those sexual indiscretions? Is that an offense that is serious enough to merit impeachment? And I'll limit your answers here because it's pretty much a yes or no question, but Mr. Baumann, let's begin with you. Is that an impeachable offense?
Yes, I'm going to say it is. But I guess I got reservations. I didn't expect this kind of a question to come up to me tonight, I guess. But yes, he has lied to the American people, and that's wrong for a leader of a nation. It brings the United States down too far. What do the other countries think that a man can get by with that? If he can't be honest, he should be impeached.
Okay, that's fairly direct. Senator Brownback?
The standard is high crimes and misdemeanors. We've been in this terrain once before as a nation, twice before, I guess you could say, if you where President Nixon was. The president is committed to an adulterous affair with somebody barely of legal age, has lied about it to a grand jury, and there's charges of abuse of power involved as well. I think one needs to look at fully the set of evidence that comes on forward in making the legal determination, which is what the Senate would be called upon to do if we get there, as to whether an impeachable offense. A number of people believe that the standard that you're within that in those categories, but there's a number of legal scholars that are divided on that point. This is one I think we need to really think and chew on a long time on reaching that level of impeachable offense.
Senator Feliciano?
To compare President Clinton's dilemma with that of President Nixon is absolutely absurd. But be it as it may, I believe that the verdict is still out as to whether or not the actions by the president are indeed an impeachable offense. As a non-attorney, it's an issue that will be debated, and will be debated extensively by the members of the Judiciary Committee and the House of Representatives. And so the verdict is still out, and it's not a yes or no answer. One has to weigh the information that's presented to us, and at that point in time, we'll abide by the decisions of the House that will then be presented to the United States Senate.
Mr. Euler?
The sexual affair is probably not an impeachable offense, but the abuse of power and the lying to a grand jury, obstruction of justice, are the same charges that President Nixon faced.
Thank you. I think we'll move on to Bill Felber and another issue area.
Gentlemen, I suspect that one question that a lot of the folks watching tonight would like me to address, where you could have substantial impact upon their daily lives, is in the matter of tax policy. And so I would like to ask you what alterations, if any, to the present federal tax code would you support if you were elected? Mr. Euler, let's start with you.
Okay, I support the flat tax. I'm not married to it, but I think it will work best for most of the American people. I am opposed to the national sales tax because I think it's going to become a hidden tax. I think the IRS, I don't know, have an exact percentage figure that they should be cut, but they should be cut a lot, and a lot of the appropriations that they've been sending to Congress that have been approved, I believe, for military-style weapons and counterintelligence type stuff that they're going to use the American people, I think all of that should be abandoned. I'm open to suggestions. If anyone has a nice, fair, and simple tax system that they want to present to the United States Congress, I would accept it. I mean, Dick Kephart has a nice tax system that he's proposed. He has progressivity in it, and I don't like that, but I would consider it.
Mr. Baumann?
We all know we need taxes to run our schools, our roads, and our government. But the worst is the spending. Just like up in Washington, D.C., It looks like now we got a one-party system when we get up there. When they get up there, they vote themselves salary increases, pensions, and perks. We need to get this thing balanced. And when they get through that kind of spending, they spend all kind of money for foreign aid and things that really should be under more control. On the tax situation, I got a lot of questions. A flat tax depends on how it's written, and income tax I don't think is being handled right. I think it needs a lot of reform if we're going to keep it. So I'm just not sure on any tax. Any tax that's passed, I would like to study the base of the tax before I say yes or no.
Senator Brownback?
Well, and building off Mr. Bowen's statement, when I was in the House, I put through the gift ban. We were able to get through that for the House of Representatives. And I've been able to hold off for 3 years of salary increases for members of Congress. 2 years was in the Congress and 1 in the Senate. We weren't successful this past year on that. On the tax policy, a couple of things. Number one, I support sunsetting the current tax code by the end of the year 2001 and starting this great national debate about what we should go to. I think Mr. Euler has been quite good about saying, well, here's a flat tax, but wants to look at what other possibilities might come forward. That Dick Gephardt has a flat tax with 5 rates. I'm not sure how flat that is, but that's what he calls it. A lot of different proposals are out there. The first thing we need to do is just say, let's move off this tax code. That's how we balance the budget. We set a date certain to balance the budget by. Now, the President calls this reckless. That's what he called balancing the budget. We need to move to a system that is fairer, simpler, flatter.
Senator Feliciano?
Well, quick like, I am opposed to the flat tax. I'm opposed to the national sales tax. It's the most discriminatory tax that we can impose upon the citizens of this country and of the state. I think that we need to take the entire IRS code and completely revamp it and make it more user-friendly. I would not advocate doing away with the IRS the way my colleague to my right has advocated, because it would play havoc within the estate and the CPA markets out there. There are too many programs that are in place right now on behalf of different citizens that it would just destroy the ability for them to function in our society. I think it's time that we took a real serious hard look at how it is that the IRS is not working and not functioning in our society.
Okay, we have about 4 minutes left, so some abbreviated closing statements. Let's limit them to 30 to 45 seconds. I'll begin again with Mr. Bauman.
I'm very humble. Why did I get into this Senate race? I seek no glory. I want no glory. I brought nothing into this world, and I'll take nothing out. I'm concerned. Why can't all be treated equal? When Congress passes legislation to give the greedy corporations tax breaks that cost every taxpayer $1,186 a year, that's not using any sense, not even horse sense. How can any congressman sleep on a night when his fellow man, family farmer are losing their livelihood, committing suicide, taking bankruptcy, and forced into employment against their will? What's going to happen to our children and grandchildren?
Mr. Bauman, I'm going to have to cut you off at that point so we can get to the end. Senator Brownback.
Thank you very much for joining us. What I want is another American century. Another American century for my children, for my children's children to come, and yours as well. We can do that, but we're going to have to make some changes. We're going to have to take care of the people that we have here now. We've got a farm crisis issue to address now. We need to be able to help veterans. We need to work on Social Security. We need a new tax code that we've talked about as well. One other thing we need to renew the American character. I think of anything that we've found out recently, and that is that character does matter, and it matters greatly. Whether you're a Little League baseball coach or in the United States Senate, character counts. And I want to take the Kansas values, Kansas character, back with me again in representing you in the United States Senate.
Senator Feliciano?
I want to thank Public Broadcasting System for allowing this forum to take place tonight. I think it's important for the people of the state of Kansas to understand the significance of what this election is all about. It's about sending someone to Washington who truly cares about their interests. It's about sending someone to Washington who's going to be innovative, creative, challenging, and not continue the same old policy of business as usual. We need people that can be innovative and creative as it relates to issues impacting our farmers, impacting our senior citizens, impacting our veterans, and I'm sad that we didn't address the issue of veterans tonight. But given the opportunity on November the 3rd to be elected as your United States Senator in Kansas, I will bring my 26 years of experience to be there for you. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. And Mr. Euler.
Well, thank you for inviting me. As many of you may have noticed, I probably won't win a public speaking award. There were a lot of things that weren't discussed here tonight. For example, education. I want to get rid of the Department of Education and all the federal education programs and return education to the states, to local communities, and to the family. The Second Amendment was not discussed. I support the Second Amendment. Basically, I want to represent everyone, and there are a lot of people out there that are in small groups that don't seem to get represented. For example, if you smoke and you believe that federal dollars should not be used to have a lifestyle, then I'll represent you in the U.S. Senate. The same is true as if you drink or if you're fat, whatever fat is. That seems to become the upcoming fad. Thank you.
Thank you. And we actually got done just a few seconds early so we can get out gracefully. I want to thank the candidates for joining us, and I want to thank our journalists for taking the time as well. Of course, this all is done in the interest of educating the voters, and we hope you'll take advantage of that and get to the polls November 3rd and make your choice. Also, I'd like to remind you to stay tuned for the next hour, for the PBS Debate Night continues with a discussion of national issues. So please stay tuned for that. Thanks for joining us, and good night.